Me and Joe did,
It's
and
just
you were
you're
there.
going back and forth, so
So-
I can't.
I'm gonna do the line.
communicate.
You are ready?
So it was interesting. That was
All right, everybody, I'll let Jay finish. All right, well, you guys are ready, we'll get started by standing and start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming in on this actually beautiful day. Don't forget our mission and vision statements as we think about the agenda and as we make decisions tonight. I don't believe we have any hearing of delegations. Need a motion then to approve the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Thanks,
I'll
Tom.
second that.
Thanks, Jay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda approved. Communications to the board, I don't see any at this point. You should have received the consent items in your packet, and you also may have invoices in front of you that Lisa put. Any comments on those?
On the screen, I have the revenue versus expenditures. You see our expenditures to date, 8.6 million, 9.5 million last year. There's some timing with that. Lisa's got a lot of special ed billing in January that goes out. But the big picture is, there's been some areas we've reduced in supplies, and I think some of that shows up in our expenditures. Looking at the revenues, very comparable to last year. We're slightly higher, which we would anticipate, but still revenues far exceeding expenditures, which is really good. And I'll dig into the finances a little bit more in my report, but we don't anticipate ending with a surplus this year. This is a year we do believe we'll deficit spend like last year. That's all part of our plan that we've talked about for a number of years. But expenses versus revenues right now look very good for us.
Any questions from the board when they looked over the consent items? All right, hearing none, need a motion to approve the consent items.
So moved.
Thanks, Todd. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thanks, Andrew. We got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Consent items approved. We'll move right into your report.
Yep, so a little financial review tonight. A couple different charts to look at, bar graphs to look at, and I'll explain those. And then, probably most important, explain the assumptions that we have to develop these forecasts. So we start with there's a bar graph with blue and red bars. Our revenues are the blue bars versus our expenditures, which are the red bars, and they look good in our year-to-date model that I just showed. However, as this graph shows, we do anticipate spending more than we bring in this year, which is planned, which is the red being slightly higher right there. It's got it at about 600,000, somewhere in that area, maybe around 700,000. We're anticipating operating next year, FY27, with a surplus. Again, that's intended. As we knew this year would be a deficit, we have some budget adjustments that we are making throughout this year that allows us to have a surplus in the last year of the sharing funding, which is next year. So we operate with a surplus. That makes our cash balance go back to an area that we're comfortable, and I'll talk about cash balance here in a second. But that's just a little bit about our revenues and expenditures. So if you look at those going out to FY31, which we always give 5 years of predictions in our forecast. It's hard to do. There's a lot of variables in there, but it gives us a general area and places to discussion. They look good. Revenues versus expenditures look okay going out that far. However, keep in mind that is making the assumption that we're going to reduce expenditures around $700,000 from this year to next year. That's also taking into account a cash reserve increase of around $700,000 from this year to next year, and some future budget adjustments next year. So it's keeping those things in mind. If we execute the plan that we have in place, things look good, and that's what we're trying to show here. The second graph, the purple graph, is the fund balance. We want our fund balance, our board goal is to be 10% of expenditures through FY30. That's a pretty low goal, but that is our goal. We stay pretty close to that until the very end, 2031, and we're below that. So some adjustments will need to be made, which they always are. That's school finance in a rural district, as enrollment is fairly unpredictable and not growing very often. We're always making adjustments to balance our budget. But our fund balance is something that we're okay with. We feel all right with where it's at, and continuing to monitor that to make sure it stays at that level. Our unspent authorized budget, and always keep in mind, that's not cash. That's more like a credit limit. The recommendation is for that to stay between 15 and 25%, and it does that. I think it goes to 25.8 and 25.5 out in FY 28 and 29. So again, a financial health thing that we consistently look at that looks good, but we do have to make sure we have cash to back those things. And that's the thing that we're being cautious of with our budget adjustments that we're making this year, next year, and in any futures down the road. I talked about assumptions. So when we make these forecast models, we have to put in a number of assumptions, and we try to stay very, very conservative with these. Some of those assumptions are that we will not have increased enrollment at any time in those 5 years. There's nothing that would make me predict that we will. There's also nothing to make me predict that we would have large declines. Those are those things that we would just have to see. It also makes an assumption that 6 more teachers retire next year, which would be the last year if the board decided to put that in place for the 4th year, that 6 more would retire. The forecast model increases the cash reserve to 1.5. That would be about a 700,000, maybe a little less than that increase. We have not taken what we could in cash reserve for a few years in a row, a number of years in a row, because we had the cash and we didn't need to. And I think that's being responsible to our people. As our times have changed, funding hasn't kept up with expenses, we have a greater need for cash now, and we can see that with our model and what it's projecting. This forecast model assumes a 2% salary increase for next year and the year after, and then it goes to 3%. We could also be probably more conservative with that. The forecast model assumes a 2% SSA increase for upcoming years. I just don't know if I have it in my heart to put in less than that, although that could be a reality. Met with legislators last Tuesday. I also had Representative Wills and Senator Rowley in my office in November. They use terms like 0 to 2%. When they say 0 to 2, that makes me nervous. But we do have a $900 million shortfall in our state government, so we'll have to see. That's what we need to advocate the most for our district, and I would say for all school districts, is appropriate funding. If we had 2% this year, that'd be 12 out of the last 13 years that we've been 2% or lower. That's what creates the crunch that we're in right now. Because if we get 2% every year, but our salaries, insurance, and expenses increase 3 or 4 or 5%, in the end, those don't work, right? Those don't line up, and that's just what we're facing right now with 2% SSA.
What would is 1% SSA for a couple, 3 years due to this model?
Yeah, it's a really good question, Todd. For next year, 0, 1, or 2 means the same thing for us, 114,000, because we're on budget guarantee.
Okay.
However, if you take the difference between 2 and we'll say 0% over 5 years, that's millions. Because the 2% in our, we'll say our $7,600, right, that we get per pupil, if that only goes up, if that goes up 2%, then we have that for next year, right? And then 2%, you have that for next year. If it's 0, then we've lost all of that. So it's literally millions of dollars out of this right here, where our revenues are in red. Looking at that right? No, in blue. Our revenues are in blue. They're not going to go up, where our red are. Expenses are going to go up. Things cost more, just like they do in our budgets at home. So that's a really good question. Over a 5-year time period, if we're less than 2%, we're looking at ways to reduce millions from our expenditures. We wanted to give a good look at our financial review. Big picture, things look good, right? These look how we want them to look. 25% UAB, fund balance 10%. We'll have to check this again here. Revenues, expenditures close, but this is us executing our plan of making budget adjustments throughout this year and next year. And we'll talk a little bit more about those expenses later on when we look at early retirement and what we have for applications for this year.
Well, it's a great update. Thanks for keeping us updated on all that. And any other questions? All right. Hearing none then, we'll move on to the administrative report. I believe we have Mrs. Eischen here.
We had Mrs. Eischen last Wednesday. We had our SIAC meeting. She's going to talk about what that group is. There's a little bit in your memo as well, but I'm going to recap that a little bit for us and why we do it, but then get into a really interesting topic that we want some of your input on as well. In your packet, at the back of it, there's a stapled packet and then a yellow sheet. Those are some of the information she's going to go through today.
Yes, so we're going to kind of make you part of our SIAC group a little bit later and have you kind of experience what that group does. So we are required to have a school improvement advisory council. From what Mr. Carter shared a couple of years ago, we kind of resurrected it. We kind of had one, it wasn't maybe really functioning probably about 3-4 years ago. We kind of brought that, right? Yes.
Yeah, maybe a little longer ago than that. In the transition to me coming here, our SIAC group kind of had just fizzled. So we rejuvenated it. We asked for parents, community members, school. We want a collection of people to help us look at what we're doing at the school from different eyes, from a different perspective. That's what that group does, and a lot of great things have come from that group over the years.
Yep, we think there's a lot of value in getting some information from our stakeholders on certain topics. One of the things that it is suggested that a SIAC committee can do is look at some data, so we always try to put some data in front of them because it does stand for a school improvement council. So that's usually the best way to look at that. They can also kind of give us some feedback on some educational aspects that we might be taking, and we kind of did that with this one on a topic that's a hot topic around the state. So that's what they are. You have seen a lot of this before, but I just want to show you what we show them as well. So we go through the Iowa School Performance Profile with them, just like that I did with you guys a couple months back. We talk about why that exists. Again, anytime that we can have more people who better understand what that data is, since you can get it at just by typing in a keystroke and you can see all of this, it's really important people know what it is that they're looking at so they can be accurate in what that really means. And so we show them what it means, the foundations of it. Joe, you can kind of keep clicking, and then we go through those main data sources, and then they pretty much see a slide similar to that where I show them what it looks like for the district, and that's kind of how we go through that section of it, kind of explaining to them, similarly to what I've done with you. But then we give them some time to sit at kind of their tables, and that's the stapled packet that you have in front of you. We give them each of the building overviews. So you'll see a high school one, a middle school one, and an elementary one. There's a district one you see too, but we'll look at that in a second. They didn't get that one because that's kind of hot off the presses. But I did also include in the ones that you're looking at and that they looked at a kind of up or down from where it was last year, so they could see a little bit of comparison data. And then we give them some time at their tables. Almost always we have usually a school administrator is sitting at each table, so somebody who kind of can help answer some of those questions. are strategically placed around there. We kind of just let them share some of their ahas. They always have some interesting things that they bring up to us. They always highlight the things that we see as well. So just kind of a way to put some data in front of them. So that's what we do with that. Now, this year we shared with them that we do have a district rating now. We usually, before we just had those at the building level, we now have it at the district level, and this is relatively new.
Yeah, so, last month during my report, remember I shared some of this with you, but it was just words because it was embargoed at that time. This is full public release now of district performance profile ratings. Our score is a 69.09%. This is where we fall in our conference. We would be the second highest school behind Clear Lake with a 73.09%, the state average being 63%. We think it's interesting, this is it, to look at of all the districts, so from the state perspective, there's 2 who are exceptional, right?
Yep.
There's 81 that are in the high performing, that the lowest score for that is 69.60. Remember, ours is 69.09. So we are 0.51 from being in the top 25% of the state. So we're probably 26%. But those are good things. Those are things we want to talk about. We're in the top 25% of the schools, school districts in all the state through many, it's achievements in there for sure, but many other ways that we rank schools. And there's things we need to get better at, for sure.
And we'll look at that. I included some of that too. So you can see when you click, Joe, where we landed. We landed in that commendable range, and we'll explain why in a second. You're going to say, well, that's not what it says over to the side, and we'll get there. But our score, when all those points are totaled, similarly how they're totaled by the building. So it is exciting that they use such a similar model for the district as they did the building, because we're all familiar with how to read that. So I'm thankful that it kind of looks the same from that. But we were awfully close to that next little level of high performing. However, on paper, we are listed as acceptable because we did drop one category down, because we do have one subgroup, which we'll look at subgroups in a second, that fell below the threshold, and for us that was students with disabilities. So one thing that we do really value when looking at data like this, though, is looking at subgroups and looking at subgroups even across the state. So of the subgroups that we tend to have of English learners, so our EL population, free and reduced lunch, low socioeconomic status, and students with a disability, again, from the state perspective, you can see 124 school districts had a subgroup of students with disabilities that dropped them down a category. Only 5 with English learners. I really think it's interesting that no districts fell below for students on free and reduced lunch. That just means when they run the report of just that group of students, they fell either above or below. I think that's exciting, because we heard a lot about that for a number of years. And then you'll see on the next click, we get into some of the student populations. One district across the state was flagged for their Hispanic, and I think it's interesting just to note too that just because you have English learners doesn't always mean that it's a certain population. For us, we tend to have one that's a little higher, that the Hispanic and ELs correlate, but that's not everywhere. And I think it's also interesting that there's one district who fell below because of their white students, particularly in the state of Iowa. I think that's interesting as well. So if you kind of keep clicking, Joe, you'll see that students with disabilities, what we were dropped for, again, we're kind of in, I guess you could say we're in good company with 124 other districts.
And we never make excuses, and we certainly won't with this either. This is something that's got to get better, and we're digging into it and already putting action plans in place. But are we a lot different? There's 124 other districts who have the same measures. So it's not something different we're doing
Specific to just us.
It's a problem across the state that we have to make better.
Yeah. And the last little thing that will show up there, Joe, is that so there's 125 districts, so 38% of the districts across the state did receive like one lower rating for at least one subgroup. So that also tells you that if there's only 125, and if 124 students with disabilities, you have some districts who got dinged on a lot of these subgroups.
Yeah.
So that's not us, but it can happen, just to get a little bit of a perspective from that. So I included in your packet, if you're interested, what that looks like for us across the district, and so you can go forward one more, Mr. Carter, and then I think it's just important what we tend to look at is those total points. Of course, we go much deeper into this. Again, this was just unembargoed here, kind of at the first of the year, with Christmas and stuff in there. Haven't dug into it too much, but we will. We'll do it just like I print all those out for our building ones, but if you click one more and you look at those total points, one that just visually sticks out is the very last one there on the post-secondary readiness and work-based learning. We only got 13 points of about 50, but we have some plans in place that, in fact, I think Mr. Cecil's speaking with you at an upcoming meeting about some things on that too. So we certainly do look at that and value having that in kind of a way that visually makes sense.
Yes, we're going to be very, very proud to talk about, we're in the top 25% of the state, and as a district, how is that measured? People ask that question. This is how it's measured. It's measured by your attendance growth, your chronic absenteeism, all your proficiencies, your growth in those areas. This is the screen that shows how it's measured, and there's areas to grow there. The post-secondary work-based learning is an area that we have different things in place, but that hasn't been scored yet for this year. So we certainly believe that will look different next year. This attendance growth at the high school, that was the right building, am I right there?
Yep.
We grew 40 points from last year to this year.
Yep.
And of course, this has been a point of emphasis for sure, and our people are working really, really hard. When kids are here more often, they do better. And we believe that and work to engage them and get them here more often.
Yep. So that's one piece of information that we shared with the SIAC group, and then we took advantage of that suggestion that they give for SIAC on getting some feedback for educational decisions, and we decided to kind of broach the topic with them of how often they've used AI in the last 24 hours. So as we go through this, you certainly can kind of rhetorically think about this a little bit yourselves, and I'm just going to kind of narrate for you some things that came out with our group. People had lots of things that they shared. I showed them that you've probably used AI more than what you maybe have thought, from navigation in cars to all those things, because that is absolutely what AI is. But we kind of transitioned from not so much the AI things that maybe help with your day-to-day life, but AI in terms of student learning and what it means in school, which was really what we were trying to get some feedback from them. By the way, we'll preface this with Mr. Carter and myself. We have zero preconceived notions about all this. This is like a fact-finding mission that we're kind of on right now.
We started last Wednesday with our admin team, where I brought up some thoughts on AI, provided them some opportunities to give feedback. Even as an admin team, we're in many, many different places on what our next steps are with AI, and that's why we wanted to get the perspectives of our parents and other people. What are our next steps, specifically with learning and the use of AI in our school district?
So we did a little bit of common learning just about like what really is AI, kind of a good definition from some work that came out of the state about the use of machines and the theory that they can do things that humans used to do. We did also watch a video. I did not share it here with you. It was very short, minute and a half, but the essence of that video that was put out by Duke University was really good, because it said, but we will always need humans to think. So the machines and the AI can kind of gather some things for us, but we will always need a human to make sense of that. And there's things that a human brain can do that a machine just never will be able to. So kind of dispelled a little bit of the, we won't need humans anymore. That was a very good kind of video for that, and to kind of just lay the groundwork for what we were going to talk about. And then this next image that we showed was even kind of honing in on that, because even when you hear AI, just the basics of it is having a machine do something that a human used to do. I mean, that was calculators for some of us back in the day. That was the start of using spell check, and then the internet came, and what we're really trying to get at with learning is this generative AI, when it can now generate something for us. So that's really what we were trying to get them to kind of give us some thoughts a little bit about. So we hit on that, and then we had a couple scenarios. Again, we're going to share them with you. We don't have to open talk them, but just kind of some interesting things for you to think about. If a middle school student uses AI to get some help at home explaining a math concept they didn't get in class, we said things like, is that cheating? Should that be allowed? Should that not? A high school student uses it to generate a draft of an essay and then revises it. Is it cheating? Is it not? We had some of those scenarios up there and kind of let them talk. We took some good notes from that. We had a few answers kind of all over the place. There was a lot of, well, maybe, it depends on this, it depends on that. That was perfect. That's what we were kind of seeking in some of that. And then we had another prompt of employers increasingly are expecting workers to understand and work along AI tools. Did we think that statement was true? Was it false? What's the role of the school in that? So we kind of threw that out to them as well. And then the last thing that we did was we gave, oh, that's right, this little image. I'm kind of liking this, that we don't need to make things harder for some kids than it already is. And so this might be a good image for us going forward of education without AI. It might be like going uphill for some kids, because it can be a tough battle for some kids who struggle, but we don't want to rely on it too much, because that can be like an out-of-control motorcycle that we just can't control. But maybe the e-bike, where I still need to navigate it as a human, but every once in a while I can not have to do very much with it, and it can still be effective. What we'd like you to do is that yellow sheet in front of you, we gave them this kind of, exit ticket, you might say, and we asked them to, above the dashed line, either 1, 2, or 3, what might be some places that we should maybe start to think about, and then we had people kind of circle some certain bullets that they think are most important. And then we also had them choose just 2, they could only do 2, at the bottom, what parts of AI concern you the most. So maybe take about 30 seconds just to glance through that, because then I'm going to show you what their responses were. So on the top part of it, all those little check marks, that denotes what people had. So kind of overwhelmingly, and Mr. Carter, you can kind of keep clicking, they definitely said we should probably start in that student skill development, working with our students on appropriate use for, checking for biases, things like that, creating materials for students who are at all different levels of need was a big one, which is something that we know.
From the teacher perspective.
Yep, from the teacher perspective. Yep, teachers being able to create materials and then teaching those critical thinking skills. One person did write in that you would have to probably even before that, start with learning for staff and teachers. And then the areas that concern you the most, there were 2 overwhelming winners in that one, and that was an over-reliance on AI by students. I asterisked that because, Joe, it'll pop up here in a second. Almost everybody also wrote in, and staff. So over-reliance on AI by students and staff, they wrote that one in. And then concerns around maybe reduced thinking or problem solving. So our next steps were really just to kind of take that feedback, maybe start to get this in front of teacher groups for feedback. And if you so choose, before you leave tonight, if you would want to fill out the yellow sheet and leave it with Mr. Carter, we would certainly welcome any board feedback that you might want to give us as well, so we can maybe start to think about our next steps of what this looks like at Algona schools. Because
Yeah.
I was telling Mr. Carter, I probably get 5 to 8 emails a week on vendors and companies and what's your AI this and this, and I'm always like, I don't know.
There's all kinds of stuff out there.
Yeah.
probably dipped our toes
Yeah.
into developing our staff. Mr. Stein, who's, in the audience tonight, has been part of that with our high school staff. We need to decide what our next steps are, not only with staff, but also with students. And then the third part is from policy. At the school board convention, I sat in on a session where Williamsburg School District, they have put policy in place in regards to AI and the expectations of how it's used. That's not yet IASB recommended policy, but it will be very, very soon.
And sorry, I forgot, there is a group that is working at the state level to develop some policy and thoughts around this, kind of under the heading of computer science, at the state level, to give some recommendations on where schools should start. But they're using some of the schools who have already kind of taken the lead and done some work on that. So,
Yeah.
So there, you just experienced our SIAC meeting in a little bit of an abbreviated time.
Very good.
Any questions?
Thank you very much for the update.
Yep.
All right, we'll move on to the old business, and that's approving the second reading of board policies.
We have board policies in the 100 series. Some of these were also changes from legislation. Remember, we started some of those in our December meeting. In none of these do we have change in policy. We have some change in verbs, words, and terminology that is used. So we recommend those changes as identified.
Make a motion to recommend changes in policy
Thank you.
or verbiage.
Thanks, Jay. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, John. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Second reading's approved. Moving on to new business, we have first reading.
First readings in the 400 series, credit and procurement cards. That is on our schedule. No changes will be recommended for that. The second reading will be in February.
Please take a chance to look at those, and we'll come back in February. All right, approve early retirement applications.
Earlier in the fall, you guys approved an early retirement program for this year. This is the third year in a row that has been approved. There has been discussion at the board level, possible intentions of a fourth year. We had 8 applicants apply for early retirement this year. All of these applicants have met the requirements of being at least 55 years of age on June 30th of this year and of having at least 12 years of service in the district. 6 of these 8 positions will be filled by people currently working in our district. So only 2 of these 8 will need to be hired outside the district. In our policy, it says that the board will not approve more than 6 unless recommended, or that the superintendent may recommend more. I do recommend the approval of all 8 in this case because it's only 2 hires, and that's why we put the cap in place, is to protect the district and from not being able to hire our early retire applicants. Remember, the benefit that was approved by the board in the fall was 1% of their annual salary multiplied by years of service, and then that's capped at 25%, and then they will receive $25 per unused sick day and 5 years of health insurance. Colleen Bowman, middle school counselor, Brian Connick, high school social studies, Carrie Connick, elementary special education, Mike Elsbecker, middle school science and social studies, Diane Goodman, kindergarten prep program, Sheila Stecker, kindergarten, Mike Weir, high school math, and Steve Young, high school science.
The last 2, Mike Weir and Steve Young, are the ones we look to replace.
We have both of those posted externally, correct?
Okay. Any questions? I guess hearing none, we need a motion then to approve the early retirement.
I make a motion to approve early retirement applications.
All right. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Andrew. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
One quick question. I was just reading that. It said 6 of these 8 positions will be filled by current staff. Is there a process for how that
Yep.
happens, or?
Good question, Todd. All of these, as I get the application, they're posted internally as anticipated. Tomorrow, that gets changed to open, then we've already had staff interest in all of these positions. That will start communication with some of those staff over 2 weeks. And, I think in 2 weeks, we'll be done with this process and all these positions will be filled, including possibly some that we have to hire outside for. I know Mr. Cecil will be putting together an interview group for the high school science that'll be the first one. So communication over the next 2 weeks with our people to put those, get those positions filled.
All right, any other questions or comments? We do have a motion and a second then. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Early retirement applications approved. Looking at open enrollment next.
We have 3 open enrollment applications, 2 of those to online, one from a neighboring district. All open enrollment applications do meet the requirements. It seems like, almost a theme at this point in the meeting. Every month we talk about online. What I will say about that this month is last Tuesday, our legislators, they know the problem and they're going to fix it. I feel pretty confident about that. They believe, like I do, it was an oversight, that they didn't put a date or a deadline in that, in an online application, just like every other student. I think that'll change here quickly once they're back in session today, so.
All right, we need a motion then to approve open enrollments.
So moved.
Thank you. Andrea, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Jay. Any discussion or questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Open enrollment approved. Looking at, looks like we do have resignations under personnel.
We have 3 resignations, Maddie Elsbecker from JV Volleyball, Cheyenne Reginius from Lucia Wallace Teacher Associate and Middle School Volleyball, and Tanya McGuire from Teacher Associate at Bryant Elementary. Coaching sponsors are pending suitable replacements unless otherwise noted. In this case, Mrs. Elsbecker's volleyball will be pending suitable replacement.
Need a motion for the resignations. Thank you, Todd. Second.
Second the motion.
Thanks, Tom. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resignations approved. Looking at a couple contracts too.
Yep, with some recent teacher associate resignations, we have 2 contracts to approve. Janelle Eisendorf at Bryant and Vicki Briggs at Lucia Wallace.
Need a motion for approval.
So moved.
Thanks, Todd. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, thanks, Andrea. We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Contracts approved. Was a little bit shorter agenda this month, so we are at the end.
Yep.
We just need a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Thanks, Todd. We have a second.
Second the motion.
Thanks, Tom. We are adjourned. Somebody. All right, I'm gonna take this picture. Good.
I know.